It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Almost to Memorial Day weekend, which means people will be traveling. And I read this story, Just the News had it, justthenews.com. California Republicans are launching an investigation into the low carbon fuel standard update that is expected to increase the cost of gasoline by 65 cents per gallon, impacting not just California, but parts of Nevada and Arizona that rely on California for fuel on July 1st. That's in the middle of the peak summer season. CARB and the governor, that's the California Air Resources Board, and the governor pushed an expensive gas price hike behind closed doors, ignored public input, and misled Californians about the real cost, said Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones, a Republican from San Diego. We believe their real goal is to drive gas prices so high that working families have no choice but to buy electric vehicles. Well, that's always been the case. Obama said it way, way back a long time ago in February of 2008. So we believe that's what they wish to do, whether they can afford it or not. The public deserves the truth, and we intend to shine a light on this radical agenda. Now, yesterday, again, I saw gas prices at a 4-year low. What are they talking about? Where is this? Certainly not in North Texas, where I live. Gas prices were $2.65 on January 20th. On the way to work today, $2.99. They were $3.09 last week. $2.99. Both the gas stations around me, $2.99.
That's what I saw.
That's higher than where it was January 20th. If it's way lower, if it's the lowest in 4 years, every place else, or the average in the country is that much lower, how can that be the case when we have so many refineries in the state of Texas?
We're making gas with wind power and solar now. A lot of government money in it.
But but the Trump administration is publicizing gas prices are down. Gas prices since January 20th, where we live here, it may be different 70 miles outside of North Texas. It may be different in rural areas where you don't have the blend. But gas prices are over 30 cents higher than they were on January 20th here.
Yeah, right.
So we've been keeping up to date on that just to see if, I'd like them to be lower. Now, it's still not bad, but
I'd like it to be zero.
What I just love, though, is low prices are not a mark of a democracy. Gasoline prices are low. Eggs are down. Eggs are down. Gasoline prices are down. But prices don't matter.
Okay, so I went to GasBuddy.com. Now, again, these are user-reported prices based on, I don't know what GasBuddy does these days in terms of confirming these prices. So this, I started in Texas, which starts with the cheapest fuel, $2.19.
It's got to be a gas war.
Willis, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Baytown, $2.19. Beaumont, $2.27. Are you seeing a pattern? McAllen, Texas, $2.28. Pharr, Texas, $2.29. Texarkana, $2.33.
These are the lowest prices they found.
This is starting from the lowest prices.
Right.
And the list stops here, but that's the lowest prices in the entire state, as reported by people reporting this, users reporting this to GasBuddy. So, in my neighborhood, $2.99.
What about the highest?
Let's see here. Hold on a second. Doesn't have a way to sort here, actually. It doesn't. The list doesn't keep going. I don't know why you would do that, and and have you want to report. Don't you want to report? The most expensive stuff too. I don't know.
No, I've said because of the blends, because we're in North Texas, that could be the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that when they say it's the lowest in 4 years, that's untrue if you're taking the average. I'm just asking the question, we live in Texas. We've got all the refineries. Why is it higher here? This is about my own self-interest.
Well, in fact, if you look at like Baytown and some of these other ones that were at 219, they're down there much closer to the refinery. All the refineries.
That may be the refinery gas stations.
Yeah, where you just pull into the refinery. Come on in, just drive through the refinery.
There are no trucks. There's just pipes that go right to the gas stations.
Well, the pipes just have a nozzle on the side of the pipe. It's just get it while it's coming out.
There's no shipping costs.
Yeah.
We have zero shipping costs for our oil.
Right.
Yeah, you did make that's a good note. It's like, okay, it's lower right where the refineries are, so there is shipping involved.
Yeah,
they've got to get it. They've got to get it up here.
Right.
So,
Yep.
But I was just wondering what it is in other metro areas, because that's a huge difference in some of the small rural areas.
All right, let's go to Dallas. And then this is the Dallas area. I'm noticing a trend here in some of these because these are outlying towns. Only one of them includes one of the major parts of the metro area. Greenville, Texas, 238. You have, let's see here, Fort Worth, 239. McKinney, 247. Grapevine, 248. Yeah. So there you have it. I did see much lower than 299, which is on the corner gas station. By the way, the only gas station within, I think, 2 miles of my house. I think the next one goes. No, it's right at about 1.5 miles. The next one is, but 299 when there's not much competition across the street. In fact, when there's zero competition across the street, you'll see it at much higher levels. Yeah.
Okay, but it doesn't make any sense because now I go to AAA.
Mm-hmm.
What's the national average of gasoline nationwide according to AAA? 5. This is today. 319.
Yeah, the national average.
Yeah. 319.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But they were saying the national average is the lowest in 4 years.
Yeah, I
just saw the headline.
Yeah, again,
right,
I don't know where they're
the average in Texas, 278.9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's the average. I mean, you look at it, But let me just see here. Okay, there it is. The average in Dallas today, 297. Tarrant County, where I live, 295.7. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You get to Parker County, 296.
Mm-hmm.
Palo Pinto, 2. So all of the metro areas, even the metro areas that's more rural, as you talk about it, it's still considered part of North. Collin County, 292. So we are up there, 297. Cook County. So there you go. And then you get to some of the smaller counties.
Well, Grapevine, just a few minutes from here, 248 at a Sam's Club, but.
I'm just talking about the average for the counties.
Mm-hmm.
That they're not breaking it down to towns there.
Right.
So, and you get down to 266, whatever.
Right.
So specific gas stations are different. Yeah.
And also when they are user reported, and it tells you how long ago it was that these were reported, those prices change on a regular basis. So you want to look at the ones that are actually the newest if you're looking to be more accurate. Otherwise, it's going to change some.
You know where I find it most expensive, gasoline, right now in Texas? West Texas.
Yeah.
304, 317,
well,
298, 313.
They have the raw materials. They don't have the refineries out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 329.
Yeah. Well, that's because you go from if you were to drive from Amarillo down to Baytown, that is an all-day drive.
Yes.
I mean, that's, I don't know how many hours, but that's, 10 hours? I'd have to check. Maybe even longer. And that's, when you're hauling all that fuel, that's going to cost you. Why is that? Well, the cost of transporting anything. But I think, you look at where we are right now with energy. We shouldn't be paying, no state should be paying anywhere near what California is paying. That's California policy.
Yeah.
That's not just transportation costs. That's California policy on blends and everything else. So there are standards. What cities were going back and forth? It was, I think, Los Angeles. Was it Houston for the most smog? But it was a Texas city at one point going back and forth for, the highest level of smog. And that's when you get lawmakers and local rule makers and lawmakers that are going to come in and say, okay, we need this blend. Now we need this blend. Now we need that blend. That's going to cost money. Under my plan of cap and trade, they're going to pass that along to the consumer.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works.
Just interesting. Another 63 cents a gallon tax hike coming to California, Arizona, and Nevada on July 1st.
Well, again, California Air Resources Board has been making moves like this along, with the state and policy for a long, long time. As I said, with this kind of policy, it's not about whether you want to keep living there. It's whether or not you can afford to stay at some point.
Well, you saw where Honda, I saw the story yesterday, Honda is going to produce less electric vehicles now.
Right.
They're going to downgrade production, as they probably should.
Right.
So, and then in June, expect gas prices to go down even more because OPEC's going to add another close to 500,000 barrels a day.
Yeah, if they fulfill the pledge, the promise.
If they fulfill the pledge,
and
you and I
gets to that level.
Well, you and I wonder when the president went over there and did all the trade deals, whether a part of that is that because
I think it could be, and I hope it works.
Well, because one of the things is we had a caller that said, yeah, but oil prices are down below; they could hit $50 a barrel, and we said, and that's bad for American oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the oil industry, it's not a good thing.
You
get down below $60 a barrel, and for the oil industry, that's not great. But for the consumer, you bring gasoline prices down. That's where the political effect is.
But the point is, the point I was trying to make is the Trump administration wants oil produced here in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's good for the consumer. But if that happens, then it makes it easier for the Middle East turns on the spigot. They sell more oil.
Yeah.
We sell less oil.
One of the experts in my family, I was talking to him a month ago. It was back in April. And we were talking about it, and he said, the prices in terms of where you can afford to, or where you basically have to stop drilling and as to where the barrel price is, where you can't afford, you're not making any money, any profit, is the difference between the technology. And, of course, the size of the outfit is going to matter, too, your resources. But whether you're going in vertical or horizontal, is a big difference as well. So it'll be interesting to see if we ever get to the point of ramping up production and prices come down. We don't want them to come down as a matter of a recession. That's never good. But, I mean, in terms of an oil glut, we have the ability, by the way, in production-wise, there is the ability to create, that massive, massive amount that's going on. Now, what you look to do there is export a ton of that.
But I asked...
So you're not creating the massive inventory domestically, an inventory glut.
But I asked a question from OPEC that usually wants to keep the oil price high because they make more per gallon.
Oh, yeah.
Why would they be doing this? And
Right.
And I asked the question. I wasn't making a statement by asking the question. I was just asking the question, is Saudi Arabia and OPEC doing that in order to hopefully make it harder for American oil companies to make a profit pumping oil? Therefore, they start shutting down some wells, and therefore that puts pressure on the president, however, to deal with them because the president wants all energy produced here in the United States.
Well, that's always the negotiation, especially with OPEC. That's why you look at the pledge to do this or do that, increase production, or if they threaten to decrease production or whatever it might be, then you have to look at what the actual output is. But they still hold those cards. And that's why it is especially dangerous and concerning, and should always be, when it comes to importing oil.
But we have a much better ability in the next decade to hold all the cards.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right. And that's what they and that's what
less on those imports.
Right,
yep.
and that's what they fear. I think asking the question, is that what OPEC fears right now? So they're temporarily trying to depress the market in the United States.
Which is my point on technology. If all of the operations and everything was moving toward more of a horizontal approach and a more efficient approach where they could drill profitably at a lower cost per barrel, then you put Saudi Arabia outside of the entire picture.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Cooking out to enjoy the extended Memorial Day weekend holiday? Remember the 4 steps of food safety. Clean, separate, cook, and chill. USDA food safety expert Meredith Carruthers says for clean, when grilling or smoking meats and other foods,
making sure you're scraping off those bits before you put new ones on there. Starting with clean grates is helpful.
Separating raw and cooked meats and the plates and utensils for them prevents foodborne illness. For instance,
have a different set of utensils there at your grill ready to swap, or taking those tongs inside to wash and sanitize before bringing them back out to put your cooked food onto whatever plate or platter you're taking it back in.
Use a food thermometer to assure a safe, minimal internal temperature. To avoid foodborne illness, do not keep foods out at room temperature for more than 2 hours, and keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold by keeping them on the grill or in a cooler at proper temperature. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, I found this really interesting the other day. We had talked about the Supreme Court about a week ago, and the entire birthright citizenship. And we had read the editorial in the Wall Street Journal, which surprised us a little bit. They said, well, it's pretty cut and dry. That birthright citizenship is part of the Constitution, and you and I are like, where did they come up with that?
Right.
The 14th Amendment was really, really as specific as you could get to slavery. And Dred Scott decision.
Right.
It's like, where are they getting this? That it's clear it's not at all. In fact, it's actually, when you break it down, inconsistent. And we went through it in our own words, and I found a Heritage Foundation senior legal fellow who did an analysis which mirrors what we did, but in more legal language.
Right.
We'll have that coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Okay, I've just been so busy reading, I haven't checked.
Oh, what's that?
Did they pass the House bill yet?
I haven't seen anything. Haven't seen anything.
I just didn't see an update here. I've just been reading things here for the last little bit and didn't even check. Let me just check very quickly, see if anybody's reporting it here as we come back in. No.
Yeah, no, it got through committee.
They're debating it.
Last night, and then, there's going to be, I guess, debate today and then a vote tomorrow?
It says watch live on Fox News that they're debating it. So, so all right. Wanted to hit on this because we didn't get to it. We wanted to get to it in this portion of the show yesterday and didn't get a chance. There's just so much going on. But this is the Supreme Court looking at birthright citizenship and the debate that went on last week on it. And we said, well, we think they're missing out on the fact that birthright citizenship came specifically, as we know from the 14th Amendment, that was directed towards the Dred Scott decision. And you had Heritage Foundation senior fellow Amy Swearer address this in a video that was on PragerU on Monday. And she points to the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. And she said the key phrase here is subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It creates a second condition for birthright citizenship beyond merely being born on American soil. But it also raises another question: who is born subject to U.S. jurisdiction? To answer the question, we need some historical context. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868, just 3 years after the end of the Civil War. Its purpose was to rectify the infamous 1857 Supreme Court decision, Dred Scott versus Sanford, in which the court declared that black Americans were not and could never be citizens even after slavery had been abolished. In 1865, Dred Scott technically remained the law of the land, and black Americans were left in limbo. They were no longer slaves, but they still were not citizens. The 14th Amendment resolved the issue once and for all. Those newly freed slaves and their descendants certainly were born subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. This had been their home for generations. If they were not American citizens, to which other nation did they still belong?
Right.
You know, that isn't too hard to understand, is it? And so when you look at it, as she wrote in this, let me make sure I have it. So while the 14th Amendment resolved the issue as it related to race, its authors would have been shocked to learn that now we interpret those words to make citizens of virtually anyone born on U.S. soil under all circumstances as citizens. That was never the intent of the 14th Amendment. You know, we addressed that when it came to gay marriage.
Right.
So the 14th Amendment has nothing to do with gay marriage. You may want to use the 14th Amendment to create it, but it doesn't. It has nothing to do with it. And to interpret it that it did, again, was not interpreting the law or creating the law. It was, you know, or the legislature creating the law. It was the courts just saying, we're going to use this even though it doesn't apply.
Right.
And as we stated there, that entire thing, and it hasn't come to fruition yet, but it was basically the reading of it. I'm doing this in layperson's terms, that everybody must be treated equal. And we said, fine, let's have that in taxes then.
Right. If it's equal treatments.
If it's equal treatment and not equal protection,
then everybody pays the same
in taxes.
Amount.
Somebody's got to file that lawsuit.
Right.
We've been hoping for that for 10 years now.
We have been, because clearly you're not going to get a break on your Social Security taxes.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to get it, am I?
Yeah, I'm watching right now from live.house.gov, and right now, they're making the case. The Democrats are speaking, and it's, by the way, the odd thing here is all the Democrats are going to vote no on this, and we're kind of wishing more conservatives in the GOP would vote no until we get something that actually cuts spending. Now, it's a different reason, but I made the joke the other day, Gary, you should call your representative Jasmine Crockett and insist that she votes no. Oh, wait a minute. She already is going to vote no because she's a Democrat.
My congressperson is voting no because she cares about the debt.
She wants more cuts. Right.
Yes.
In defense spending. Yeah,
That's right. They do want cuts.
Yeah.
Defense spending, and is that it? Would there be anything else?
Mostly defense spending. Hakeem Jeffries right now is speaking on the floor as they go through debate. I don't have the audio on, but I can imagine what he's saying. Blah, 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 Trump, blah, 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 MAGA, blah, 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 blah. He's doing a lot of finger waving and, that kind of thing for the House Minority Leader. But honestly, the concern isn't, believe it or not, on this, the Democrats, because they're going to vote. We know that none of them are going to vote yes. By the way, does anybody have a head count as to where, or any gauge as to where any of those Senate Democrats might be? What's his name?
Well, I don't know I don't know what the Senate. The Senate is going to have a different,
a totally different bill. But I mean,
it's going to be a different bill. Yeah.
What is Fetterman's? I don't believe Fetterman would be a yes vote on anything, on a spending bill. I just don't. I don't think he's going to go down that road. I think if he's going to spend something where he throws his political clout away for the left and agrees with the Republicans, it'll be something different than
I think
any spending bill.
The Senate will have their bill pass it. It might not look like the House. And
I think it's going to be.
Then they work that out unless the Senate just decides right now to take up the House bill and just pass that up or down. And I don't know if that's the case. If it's going to take till July 4th for them to do it, they're going to want to produce their own bill, are they not? Didn't they already produce their own bill on tips, which is separate than the House, or is it the same as the House?
I know they are on tips now, but
they passed it the other day.
Remember
the Senate passed it the other day.
No, I mean I just don't know where it is on tips. How much they were looking at and what the amount was going to be. How they were going to handle that. Is it any different? Is it exactly what the House version is on that?
I don't know, because I don't know if the House version changed overnight.
Exactly. It may be changing right now. Again, out of committee. Who knows?
Okay, here it is. Senate passed a surprise no tax on tips bill. Here's what it could mean for workers. The Senate on Tuesday unanimously passed a no tax on tips act in a surprise vote.
Oh.
If enacted, the legislation could create a federal income tax deduction of up to $25,000 per year with some limitations. The Senate this week unanimously it enacted the legislation that could create a federal income tax deduction of up to $25,000 a year with some limitations. A tax break applies to workers who typically receive cash tips reported to their employer for payroll tax withholdings. To qualify for the deduction, there's a $160,000 earning limit for 2025. That limit would be indexed for inflation yearly.
160 cap on income, and 25 they would have a deduction of up to 25.
Yeah, the bill advanced by the House Ways and Means Committee. Workers could deduct all qualified tips from 2025 through 2028.
Is there a sunset on the Senate version?
They don't say there is. No. Yeah. So that would be the difference. So that's the point there. I mean, they passed that specific bill, not a whole budget.
Right.
So what do they plan on doing? I don't know what the plans are for the Senate in looking at the House bill on this. So, but think about this: they unanimously you can't get one vote in the House from one Democrat for the budget. From what we know, there's still not one person who's willing to cross over for tax on tips. When you break it down individually, isn't that interesting? When you have the budget as a whole that has no tax on tips, you can't get one Democrat vote when you include everything else. When you just individually have no tax on tips, not one Democrat voted against it in the Senate.
Right.
That's what happens when you break down a bill. One of the problems with a big, beautiful bill is sometimes there's, for example, they're sticking on the fact that Medicaid, they're going to destroy Medicaid, which is false. But that's how they can justify it. They just ignore everything else and say, well, this, and this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the final version is after reconciliation. Because one of the things we talked about, this goes back, I don't know, a month at least, at the Senate version was going to cut only $4 billion. Now, wouldn't it be ironic that the Senate version actually is actual cuts of $4 billion?
Right. They were it was cuts. It wasn't
right.
That was just the amount of cuts. It wasn't what the overall bill would be cutting for.
But at that point, the House was, and we're old enough to remember, the House version was $150 billion. Remember, it was the difference between $4 billion and $150 billion,
and it's still there.
Yeah,
it's still there for the House.
Yeah,
but
it's not. But it's not overall cuts. No,
it's not overall cuts. It's cuts that will pay for some of the spending, but the rest will be borrowed.
Exactly.
And I don't know what the final score is from the House. I saw $5 trillion yesterday, the baseline.
Who was it saying yesterday?
I saw $3.3 trillion. I think it was the Wall Street Journal had it.
Well.
Or somebody had 3.3.
And that was before it went through the last committee.
Yeah, but I don't know where all those additional cuts came from because nobody was talking about the additional cuts. So did it come from additional cuts, or did they amp up and say, let's take the GDP from 2.6 to 2.8 on average, and that will get us
4.9, yeah,
and that will get us, because that's the thing about these budgets. They don't figure out budgets like we do.
Well,
we know if you have a steady job, you know what your economic growth is for that next year. You know absolutely what it is, so you know what you can spend. I have no idea what the economic growth of the United States is going to be over the next 10 years. It's a guess. And normally, they oversell it.
Yeah.
So the deficit is actually higher.
Right, so that they can promote something and pass something that isn't what they say it is. Again, I think the starting point should be on GDP, you go below average. And the scoring should start there. But, of course, they're not going to do that because they can't get away with that.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our calling. I'm Gary McNamara. This is going to be interesting because James Comer, Representative Comer, said yesterday that he's fired up. We're bringing everyone in for the Biden investigations. Boo. He faced significant challenges to investigate when Biden was president, but now that Trump is president, Comer and the committee are ready to harvest the fruits of their investigative labor. Prominent names from Hunter Biden to Biden's senior legal advisors will be brought in for either transcribed interviews if they'll come in voluntarily or a deposition. We want to bring the doctor in too. We're going to investigate the auto pen. We're investigating everything around Biden. Really,
It has to be.
which again, it's the book that really has been the catalyst for all of it. It was still out there.
Wait.
They might have done the hearings, but the book changed everything. And since Democrats are giving it now credibility,
Way to go, Jake Tapper. Well, I was just trying to. I didn't mean to. You'll need the money from the book.
But it's interesting because I do agree. I said this. I agree with Chris Cuomo, who said they're just trying to cover for themselves. This is a cover.
Oh, yeah.
This is simply a cover, but it really hasn't worked for Tapper. The cover
No, it has not at all.
That we were fooled somehow.
Yeah, you're spitting in the wind.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.